Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at weather next week to 10 days for today's video. This takes us around the 25th of October. We'll be able to extend out a little bit beyond that with the GFS actually, because that runs to 2 weeks. So we're almost getting to the end of October now with the extended GFS. So we'll have a look to what the models are showing. Also have a look at CFS V2 for the next month. That takes us into November. We're going to begin though by having a look at the Arctic and North Atlantic oscillations, which we haven't had a look at for a little while. So this is the Arctic oscillation observed and forecast chart. The black line here tells us where we've been with the Arctic oscillation. The red line's at the end where GFS symbols are forecasting the Arctic oscillation to go. Remember, this is just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere over North Pole. It's not driving anything, just tells you what the atmosphere is doing. When the Arctic oscillation is in its positive phase, you've got low pressure up over the pole. When the Arctic oscillation is in its negative phase, you'll tend to have high pressure up over the pole. It's the pressure gradients, a high or low pressure, that's driving the index. So we go right way back into the summer with this chart. We go back to the start of June just there, and you see that through the past few months, the Arctic oscillation has generally been in a prolonged positive phase. Yes, we have had some brief interludes of negativity at times through the summer into the autumn, but they've only lasted a few days. They haven't been particularly negative anyway, and the trend overall has been very much to keep the Arctic oscillation in positive territory in its positive phase through the summer and even into the autumn. This is where we are right now. We're still positive with the AO, and the GFS symbols are forecasting the AO to stay positive for the next week. But we do see signs as we go through into the final week of October, which is this period just here. We do see signs that the AO may be starting to trend in towards negative territory. Now, this would be within the extended range of these GFS ensemble members, so it's unreliable, but the suggestion is there that we might be starting to see signs of a bit of negativity creeping in to the AO as we go into the final week of the month. So that would tell us, if we did get a negative phase of the Arctic oscillation through the last week of October, it would tell us that high pressure is likely to be coming back over the North Pole, or developing over North Pole, and it would be the high pressure for blocking over the pole that would start to drive the AO into negativity. Blocking high pressure over the pole is the route to pushing cold air out of the pole and down into the mid-latitude. So particularly in winter, it's one of the things we look at to see if we're likely to turn things colder. So I guarantee of anything though, because you never know where the high pressure, where the blocking is going to be sitting. It may be in a position that doesn't push cold air out to us, but it might push cold air down to America, for example. It might push cold air down to Japan, somewhere like that. So you never really know where the high pressure is going to sit, but it is one of the things we keep an eye on, and you'll be hearing a lot more about the AO and the NAO in the months ahead. Talking of the NAO, this is the same idea. This is the NAO observed and forecast chart. So it's the same thing really, just looking at a different area. Instead of looking at North Pole, looking at the North Atlantic. So again, the black line tells us where we've been with the NAO, and then the red line's at the end where GFS symbols forecasting the NAO to go. Going back to the start of June, we see that just as with the AO, with the NAO, we have also been in a prolonged positive phase. Through the summer, the North Atlantic oscillation was very positive, really. Did go down to neutral occasionally, but again, not sustained. Generally a prolonged positive run of NAO conditions right way through the summer and into September and even into October as well. This is where we are right now. We are positive with the NAO. GFS symbols are forecasting the NAO to stay positive for the next week as well. So all clear cut up to the final week of October. But then we get to this last week of October. Again, it's this period just here. And we are seeing many of these GFS ensemble members now going negative with the NAO. So if we combine what's happening in terms of the forecast of the NAO with the AO, it does look as though some sort of pattern change could be starting to get going here for the final week of October. It may only be temporary. It's in the extended range of the GFS ensemble, so it might not come to anything anyway. Very unreliable. But combining the two indexes, the AO and the NAO, they both look like some sort of change might be starting to occur through this final week of October. And if it does, if we do get the NAO and the AO going negative through the last week of October, it would be an indication that we might be starting to see signs of something a bit colder appearing for the last week of October, maybe extending into the opening days of November. It's all a long way off. It's very unreliable. We'll be keeping an eye on it over the next few days. But possibly just a hint of there that a change could be on the way, and maybe the first shot of winter coming across our bows in the final week of October. But we should wait and see on that. Right, these are the GFS 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from Penn State University. We've got the GFS here on the bottom. The ECMWF is on the top, and we'll start off with the ECMWF. Again, these are mean flowcharts for the 7 to 10 day time frame. Red is extrapolating to above average heights, which is high pressure, and blue is extrapolated to below average heights, which is low pressure. So you can see we have got a strong anticyclonic signal here just out to west of the UK. We've got this big massive red. That's an area of high pressure sitting in the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean. We've got this trough here over Scandinavia and also extending down into Eastern Europe. So the flow on the jet stream is going something rather like that. A bit of a northwest-southeast alignment to the jet stream, and we will be bringing down cold air with this trough, certainly into Scandinavia, possibly down into eastern parts of Europe as well. Maybe the first shots of winter appearing, well, already had a couple of shots of winter of Scandinavia, but for eastern parts of Europe, maybe first shots of winter appearing in the next week to 10 days. For us, we're just on the periphery of that due to the position of this area of above average heights just centred to our west. But if we was to nudge this a little bit further northwards, take it up towards Greenland, for example, then this trough would back west into west of Europe, and that would start to pull down genuine northerly winds into the UK. So just hints there again in the 7 to 10 day time frame that we might be on the edge of something a little bit more wintry beginning to appear. GFS looks very similar in the 7 to 10 day time frame. Again, we've got the above average heights over and centred a little bit to west of us. This trough is in over Scandinavia. It doesn't extend further down into Eastern Europe like the ECMWF is showing. And we're doing something like that with flowing with the jet stream. So again, we're on the periphery of that trough that's over Scandinavia, bringing cold air down to them. It's relatively cool because the air is on a northwest-southeast alignment, but there's a lot of settled weather with the high pressure just to our west, blocking off the Atlantic, so it's dry. Dry and quite chilly, I suppose, in the 7 to 10 day time frame this morning. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation samples for the next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average, looking at Northampton today. So the next week, generally the upper air temperatures are holding up reasonably well, although we do get this dip in the temperature coming up through the middle part of the week and towards the latter stages of the week, and then over the weekend the upper air temperatures are recovering again. Not going to get anything like as warm as it was this past weekend just gone. We won't be talking about mid-20s Celsius, but I suppose pleasantly mild temperatures, mid to upper teens Celsius most likely. This final week of October, still the hints of air in the GFS samples, which you'd expect given what the AO and the NAO forecast is showing. Still the hints there of a colder period coming along through this last week of October. In fact, the GFS ensembles have extended and strengthened that signal overnight. So many of these ensemble members now are dipping down to -5 at 850 HPA at some point through this last week of October. Bear in mind, this is the last week of October, so it's not going to last long. If we do get a cold snap, it will very quickly start to turn milder, start to turn less cold. I think a lot of these ensemble members do get down to -5 at 850 HPA at some point through this last week of October. Then most of them are going back up again, if you see what I mean. So that's why the white line, which is the ensemble mean, doesn't get down to -5 at 850 HPA. But nevertheless, it is an indication that GFS samples appear to have relatively good agreement on a cold snap turning up at some point, probably briefly, through the final week of October. Precipitation-wise, a lot of dry weather to come. We've still got some rain left today from yesterday's deluge, but once that's out of the way, basically, the next week at least is looking dry. And even into the last week of October, when it's turning colder, there's not much sign of precipitation, really. So a lot of dry weather. That's a very dry ensemble for the middle of autumn. This is one of the wetter periods of the year, but we should be in now. And after the heavy rain that we had across England and Wales yesterday, it looks like we're basically going back to very dry conditions, possibly for the rest of October. Temperature anomalies are looking like that from the 14th to the 22nd of October. It's forecasting slightly warmer than average temperatures for England and Wales, near normal for Scotland and for Northern Ireland. Not a big deviation, but most parts of Europe looking very mild indeed in the week ahead. Precipitation-wise, it continues to look dry, so dry and mild basically for the week ahead, although not as warm, not anywhere near as warm as it was over last weekend. So this is how the GFS is looking for Thursday. We've got this ridge of high pressure building in across the country. It's quite cool with that. We do get a bit of a drop in the temperature around the middle part of the week. And then this ridge on Friday is extending through the country. So a lot of dry weather on Friday, no problems there. Into the weekend, high pressure continues to be dominated weather. And now it starts to warm up. This is that second push up in the temperature we saw on the ensemble, on the GFS ensemble. So yes, it will be turning warmer over the weekend. Talk about upper teens Celsius, I would have thought, not excessively warm, but again, a lot of high pressure dominating on Saturday and Sunday. There could be a little bit of showery rain into the north and northwest of Scotland. Early next week, this high pressure pulls out into the middle of the Atlantic, sort of on the high to anomaly flow chart. The high pressure sort of repositioning itself out to the west of the country in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Keeps it mainly dry and settled, but cooler air is coming around the top of the high pressure from the northwest. So that's lowering the temperature in around a week's time. And then this high pressure remains sort of in situ just out to west of the country through the early to middle part of next week. Again, it's blocking off the Atlantic, so it's mostly dry. There's not much rain around, but it is quite cool with the air coming from the north to northwesterly type direction. In the more extended range, we take that high pressure out into the middle of the Atlantic and start to pull down this very cold northerly wind. So this particular GFS run, this is a midnight run of the GFS, by the way. I'll show you a 6 o'clock run in a moment. So this is the midnight run of the GFS, and it really did pull down these very, very cold northerly winds with, again, the high pressure centred out to the west of the country, and low pressure with the trough is in over Scandinavia. So a real northerly pushing down there through that last week of October. That looks properly wintry. The upper air temperature showed the -5 isotherm is slinking through the UK. Got the -10 isotherm heading into the north of Scotland, which is pretty unusual for October. And these are the thickness lines. When you see this blue line, which is the 528 thickness line, when you see that clearing the UK, shows you are in genuinely cold air. The air is originating from sort of from the Arctic, so this is a genuine cold northerly spell that is being signalled there for the 27th of October. Bear in mind, this is October, so we're not talking about anything overly dramatic, but it will bring snow showers to Scotland, probably wintry showers draped around the coast. Otherwise, some parts of the country will actually be quite nice, plenty of sunshine. Temperatures will be cold, and of course the main thing would be the first real night frost of the season, with the temperature going well down into minus numbers, sort of -1, -2, -3, genuinely frosty by night with that kind of scenario. Doesn't last all that long. The high pressure collapses by the 29th. We start to roll milder air in from the Atlantic again. That's how we finish up on this midnight run of the GFS. We're actually extending the ridge from the UK, extending it more towards Scandinavia. So the high pressure is trying to stay in control. And for eastern parts of the country, it could actually still be quite chilly there, even at the end of the midnight run of the GFS. But mild Atlantic winds are generally being kept just out to the west-northwest of us, and we're kind of like still in this northerly, northeasterly influence. So at the very least, that could still be a little bit frosty there as we're going through to the end of October. That's Halloween, of course, 31st of October. So I'll show you the 6 o'clock run of the GFS next. I haven't got those charts loaded up yet, so I'm just going to have to pause the video there, get the charts together, and then I'll show you the 6 o'clock run of the GFS in around 2 seconds time. Right, we're back and ready to resume with the 6 o'clock run of the GFS. Sorry, I forgot to get the 6 o'clock run up for you. So this is, again, starting on Thursday with the very latest GFS run. And we see it on Thursday. Again, the high pressure is ridging through the country from the Atlantic. Quite cool with that high pressure around the middle part of the week. So Thursday, Friday, mainly dry, but it will be a little bit on the chilly side. Over the weekend, again, the high pressure dominating. We just turn a little bit warmer over the weekend as we bring in more of an Atlantic flow. So temperatures will go from kind of like low to mid-teens around the middle latter stages of the coming week to sort of mid to upper teens Celsius over next weekend. Then inside of next week, that high pressure repositioning just out to the west of the UK, pulling down this cooler sort of northwesterly flow through the early part of next week. And a lot of dry weather as well as we're blocking off the Atlantic. We're up to day 10, still with a high pressure centred in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Quite a chilly northwesterly wind coming down across the UK. Southern parts of the country mainly dry, could be a little bit showery up in the north. As we go through the final week of October, again, we've got these hints of wind turning into an Arctic northerly there on the 27th through to the 28th. Not as much of a northerly as what the midnight run of the GFS was showing, but nevertheless, it does pull down, briefly anyway, a shot of proper northerly Arctic winds, which would at the very least be enough to produce the first really significant night frost of the season. Probably it would bring snow showers to northeastern and northern parts of the country as well. By the time we get through to the end of October, this is really excellent rain stuff. The high pressure is beginning to collapse, starting to allow slightly milder air to come in around the top. Although, again, there's just that suggestion that the high pressure is not really going away, and it is actually trying to push northwards up towards Scandinavia at the very end of the GFS run, which is on the 31st of October. So for the south and southeast, that probably keeps things quite chilly up to the end of the month. But for the north and west, it is turning a little bit milder, with wind in from the westerly. So both GFS runs today are certainly hinting that this last week of October could pull down some Arctic northerlies. ECM looks like that. We're going to go to day 10 with the ECM, so just a little bit short of the final week of October. This happening is looking on Thursday. Again, we've got this ridge extending through the country, lots of dry weather at the end of the week, quite cool. Stays dry into the weekend, but temperatures warm up a little bit over the weekend. And then early next week, the high pressure pulls out into the middle of the Atlantic. We turn the wind into a northwesterly, again, which is going to be quite chilly, especially for the northern parts of the country. Still very dry, though. Up to day 10, again, we saw it on the high anomaly flow charts. We've got high pressure centred just out to our west. We've got low pressure over Scandinavia and also extending down the eastern side of Europe. That's bringing a northerly shot to many northern, eastern and northeastern parts of Europe. We need to take that high pressure just a little bit further northwards up towards Greenland to back this trough into the west of Europe and pull down those cold northerly winds. That takes us up to Thursday, 25th of October. The GFS is wanting to pull down those northerlies around the 27th. So it's inconclusive, really, whether that would bring down an Arctic northerly or not. If we could run on another day or two. It's possible, though, that it could. The GEM, again, high pressure dominating through the rest of the week, really. Lots of dry weather. And out to next week, the high pressure repositions itself just out to west of the country. Again, same idea as the ECM, really. We've got the low pressure trough over Scandinavia extending through eastern parts of Europe, so a northerly pushing down the eastern side of Europe. We're on the periphery of that because this ridge is just to our west, holding those northerly winds at bay. We need to get the high pressure more towards there to back those northerly winds into west of Europe. So again, that is inconclusive. It's up to the 25th of October, and it's inconclusive whether that will produce Arctic northerly winds or not. Finally, just having a look at the CFS V2 for next month. These are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period takes us from the 15th to 21st of October with above average heights extending through the UK, below average heights up to north, lots of dry weather, the flow and the jet going something like that. So reasonably dry and mild in the week ahead. Then we go through to week 2, which is the 22nd, 28th of October. High pressure pulls out to the west of the UK, low pressure up to the north, sending the jet stream a little bit more of a northwest-southeast alignment. It's still very dry because high pressure is blocking off the Atlantic, but it's a little bit cooler there through that particular week. Then we're into the next week period, takes us from the 29th of October to the 4th of November, with below average heights appearing to the northwest of the country, above average heights across central, eastern parts of Europe. The flow of the jet goes like that. That's a little bit more unsettled and fairly mild as well, I would have thought. For that week. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 5th to the 11th of November, with the below average heights out to the northwest, above average heights in the middle of the Atlantic and across eastern Europe. The flow of the jets going like that. That's unsettled but cooler through that particular week in November. There's not much sign of this northerly in the last week of October from the CFS at the moment, that particularly the GFS is hinting at. Temperature anomalies in weekend are warmer than average from the 15th to 21st of October, but then it cools down from the 22nd to the 28th of October. Just to average, though, it doesn't look particularly cold. So again, not much sign of that northerly through the last week of October at the moment with the CFS anyway. Week 3 temperature anomaly is close to average in the north, a little bit warmer than average in the south. And then week 4 temperature anomalies basically average really across most parts of the country. So a little bit up and down with the temperature, but again, not much sign of that northerly cold snap happening in the last week of October. Precipitation wise, the weekend is dry, high pressure is in control of the weather, so you would expect that. And then we go through to week 2. Precipitation, that also looking quite dry through most parts of the country. Week 3 precipitation is close to average, so it does look a bit more unsettled there for the very end of October and the start of November. And then week 4 also is close to average, a little bit wetter than average though for the north and west of the country from the 5th to the 11th of November, possibly hinting something a bit more unsettled for early November. That's all a very long way off. I think what we're going to focus on is the next couple of weeks. So, going to be a lot of high pressure dominating this week, the weekend, and inside of next week. Will be plenty of dry weather. Temperatures are a bit up and down. Some days are going to be quite warm. Other days will be cooler. The weekend could be relatively warm, but before that, the second half of this week looks quite cool, and then early next week looks quite cool as well. So that kind of like all cancels itself out really, but it will be very dry. And then the question for the final week of October: do we take that high pressure further north? We're going to centre in the middle of the Atlantic early next week, but do we push a high pressure up to Greenland? If we do, we'll open the door to that northerly shot. If we do get the northerly, it looks like it'll be relatively brief, only lasting a day or two, but it could give us our first sort of first shot of proper winter, certainly for northern parts of the country. You would expect snow showers with that northerly, and you would expect widespread night frost across many parts of the country as well. So that's what we'll be looking at in the days ahead. Will we get that northerly, or will the high pressure just remain to our west and keep most of the northerly winds over Scandinavia and across northeastern and eastern Europe? All will be revealed in the coming days. Tomorrow we'll have your regular Week 10 day look ahead video, and we'll also have the month ahead update with the ECMWF ensembles. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.